Welcome to Narratives. We are taking you on a voyage across space to visit some unlikely worlds you could never imagine. Not impressed? Wait until we get started. In this episode, we are going to be traveling to a faraway distant place near your galaxy. Our hero is Elisa. She has a problem. No one ever saw her potential. Let's find out more. We are introduced to Elisa's world. She is being brought to our humble sea captain where he has to decide her fate. Our humble sea captain happens to be a merchant. He left a faraway land to visit our humble king of Paradise Land. The king acquired Elisa and her cousin during a raid. Our humble captain runs through some mechanical equations to figure out the worth of Elisa. Here's his trouble. Elisa is a little older, he describes her as being around 40. She's past productive childbearing years. He looks down at his pad and scribbles some notes and responds to the translator in charge of Elisa, informing that he cannot take her. He exclaims she is not worth anything. The translator argues with our humble sea captain, explaining the two have to sold for a fair price. Those were the instructions of the king, and that condition is to stand if they want to do good business. The humble sea captain looks at the translator and ponders. Then immediately replies no. It's either the young girl or there's no deal. The translator arrives to the king of Paradise Land and informs him of the encounter with the humble sea captain. The king shouts angrily at the translator, telling her how useless the whole deal is if they can't sell them both. In anger, the king orders Elisa to be casted away since she is worthless to him. 3 men tie Elisa down both feet and arms and then proceed to pack her in a canoe. They then sail about 1/2 of a mile offshore, then they proceed to throw Elisa overboard. Then the men notice some angry and menacing fishes around Elisa's body. They look sheepishly as they sail away, executing the commands of their humble king of Paradise Land. The humble sea captain has a secretary who is operating his merchant boat about a mile from the shore. In these times, the merchant boat never docked land and awaited the merchant sea captain to come back to his base ship after his affairs. The secretary notices through his telescope something that seems to be floating in the water. As the object gets closer, they realize it's a human body. They go in their canoes to inspect and they realize that Elisa is still alive. With a mouth full of salt water, she is gliding along the surface of the water, barely conscious of her condition. They proceed to load her up in the canoe and they get all the salt water out of her mouth. They clean her up and load her up to the boat, awaiting the return of the humble sea merchant captain that night. The humble sea captain merchant comes back. He notices Elisa on his boat and, surprised, he asks his secretary what she's doing on his boat. The secretary explains how they found her floating in the water. Astonished, he explained to them how the king wanted her terminated. Then the humble sea captain merchant told them to store her along with the merchandise and to keep this secret only between the two of them, that no one else in the land of the living shall find out. The humble sea captain merchant sails back to the shore and meets with the translator to ask what the king decided to do. The translator informs the merchant that the king finally settled on selling him only the young girl. He asked about the whereabouts of the older lady and the translator informed him that she had been terminated. The translator also said that the king never really liked because she would interfere with his affairs, so for that reason, she had to get terminated. The humble sea captain grins slyly and proceeds to order the exchange of goods for his newest purchase. The humble sea captain returns aboard of his merchant ship and they are ready to make the next leg of their journey. The newly purchased girl is also stored among the merchandise and the secretary explains to the merchant captain that the inventory of the ship is complete. Their journey is ready to proceed to the next leg. As for Elisa, what a turnaround! From getting terminated to ending up with merchandise inside of a merchant ship. What is to happen to Elisa? How did she even end up here in the first place? To follow her story, check out episode 2.